I thought I knew who my son was, but after 2 days, I wasn't sure anymore. And honestly, neither was he. My name is Daniel, and I need to tell someone this story because it has lived inside me for decades, quietly eating away at everything I thought I understood about the world, about family, about reality itself. I was 6 years old when I disappeared. It happened on a Sunday morning in the summer of 1974. My grandmother's property sat deep in rural Virginia, the kind of place where the nearest neighbor was a 20-minute drive down a dirt road, and the nights were so quiet you could hear your own heartbeat. I was spending the whole summer there with my brother and a few cousins, 7 of us kids, 2 rooms, 1 farmhouse. Nobody saw me leave. My grandmother woke up before dawn to feed the animals and get ready for church. By 7 in the morning, when she came in to rouse all the kids, my bed was empty. My shoes were still by the door. Only the t-shirt and shorts I'd gone to sleep in were missing. Just a 6-year-old boy. And then, nothing. They called the police immediately. Then they called my parents, who were nearly 500 miles away. Search dogs were brought in. Neighbors spread out across the fields and the tree line. They searched all day, then all night, then again the next morning. No footprints, no trail, no sign of me anywhere near the house. And then, 2 days later, hunters found me, 11 miles away, deep in the woods, standing alone in a forest clearing, calm as you please, holding a book I had never owned before, wearing shoes that were not mine, wearing clothes so small, so shrunken onto my body that they had to cut the shirt off me at the hospital because it couldn't come over my head. I wasn't dirty, I wasn't hungry, I wasn't crying, I was just there. But here's the part that made the sheriff's deputy stop writing in his notepad and just stare at me. I told them I'd been at school, not lost in the woods, not hiding. School, the kind of school, I told them, where the teachers all looked the same, where the kids slept in rooms together, boys and girls both, and ate vegetables every day, where the windows didn't show sky or trees, they showed water, like being underwater, but with no fish, where each child was given a name and had to learn who they were going to be, and where, on big screens, they showed us pictures of our families, the homes we'd be going back to, the neighbors, the cousins, even the kids from my daycare back home. I could name every single person in those photographs, but I knew nothing personal about any of them. The police questioned me 5 separate times, 3 times at my grandmother's house, twice at the station. 7 hours of recorded audio, a 6-year-old boy speaking calmly, describing a place that didn't exist, or a place that shouldn't. And then my mother arrived. She took one look at me across the police station lobby, and her face went completely still. Not relief, not tears, not the desperate hug of a woman who'd spent 2 days believing her child might be dead. Just stillness. She walked up to me slowly, turned my head to the left, and looked at my ear. I was born with a birthmark, 2 small growths just behind my left ear, shaped a little like grapes. My mother had refused to have them removed at birth. She told the doctor she wanted me to keep them, that they were part of me. They were gone. My mother backed away. She told my grandmother, right there in that room, that I was not her son. She went back to the detective on duty and demanded they keep searching. She had photographs, old family pictures where you could clearly see the birthmark. She filed a formal report. Nobody took her seriously. I mean, I was 6. The blood type matched. The dental records matched. The physical description matched. The detectives told her the birthmark had probably faded or been absorbed. Children's skin changes. She was traumatized. She needed rest. She never agreed with them. The dogs knew something was wrong too. My grandmother kept 3 big dogs on the property. They'd grown up with me. Every summer they'd follow me around the yard, sleep at the foot of the beds. The same dogs that had been part of the search party, trying to find my scent in the woods. When I came home, they didn't recognize me. They barked like I was a stranger. My uncle had to cage them for 3 weeks until they calmed down. 2 years later, my little brother was born, and he came into the world with the same birthmark my mother always described, 2 small growths, just like grapes, behind his left ear. She was playing with him one afternoon when she looked over at me and said, quietly, like she'd forgotten I was in the room, "My first son used to have the same thing as him." I was 8 years old. I didn't know what to say. She wasn't cruel to me. She made sure I was fed, clothed, in school. She showed up when the practical things required a mother, but she was cold, distant, like she was maintaining something she'd agreed to without really wanting it. She never came to a single graduation, not one, and I graduated first in my class every single time. When I moved away for college, she cleared out my room while I was still unpacking my dorm, threw everything out. The room has been empty ever since. No photos of me on the walls, plenty of photos from before I disappeared, but nothing after. I don't say that to make you feel sorry for me, honestly. I never felt like I belonged there anyway. I felt like I was visiting, like I was filling in for someone, and maybe I was. I spent 15 years as a military pilot after that, and the thing that always felt most natural, most right, was being alone up there. Thousands of feet in the air, nothing around me for miles, in every direction. No questions, no explanations needed, just the sky and the instruments and the quiet. I investigated the case myself after my nephew, who became a police officer, tracked down the original files and sent them to me. 7 hours of audio, typed transcripts, notes from the detective, everything I said as a 6-year-old, recorded and filed away. I still can't explain it, not a single part of it. The shoes bother me most, not the school, not the screens, not even my mother's reaction. The shoes. My original shoes were still by the door when I vanished, but when they found me 11 miles away in that forest, I was wearing shoes, different shoes, shoes that fit perfectly. Someone had put shoes on me and taken mine. I've spent decades asking myself why, and the only answer I've ever been able to sit with is the one I almost can't say out loud. Maybe the point wasn't to take me somewhere. Maybe the point was to return something, something that looked enough like me to pass, something that had been prepared, quietly and carefully, to step back into my life and live it. And if that's true, then somewhere out there, there's a version of this story being told by someone else, a boy who grew up knowing things he shouldn't know, who felt his whole life like he was supposed to be somewhere different, who never quite fit the life he was living. I wonder if he feels it too, that pull, that sense of being slightly out of place, of having been borrowed. I made a promise with my best friend that most people would call crazy, and then she kept it, from beyond the grave. Her name was Maya. We met when we were teenagers, and from the very first day, it felt like the universe had just decided we were supposed to find each other. She was the kind of person who made every room feel warmer, the kind of person who remembered the small things. She knew how you took your coffee. She knew when you were lying, when you said you were fine. That was Maya. When she was 19, she was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer, terminal. The doctors gave her 5 years at most. Now here's the thing about Maya. She didn't fall apart. She looked at that news, looked back at me, and said, "Okay, so what are we doing this weekend?" That was just who she was. But late at night, when it was just the two of us, we talked about it, really talked about it, about what comes after, about whether there's anything at all waiting on the other side of that door. And one night, we made a pact. We decided that whoever left first, whether it was her from the illness or me from something completely random, would find a way to come back, to let the other one know that there was something more. She passed away at 22. Her husband called me early on a Sunday morning at 8:20 a.m. I still remember exactly where I was standing when my phone rang. He asked me to bring her son to the hospital, her little boy, 3 years old, and I knew before he even finished the sentence. That day is a blur to me now. We were allowed to sit with her for a few hours in that hospital room. I held her hand, I looked at her face, and I didn't cry. I couldn't. My brain just refused to accept what was happening right in front of me. It felt like a dream I hadn't woken up from yet, Leaving that hospital was one of the strangest feelings I've ever experienced, because my whole life revolved around her. My job, my home, my routine, all of it was built around knowing she was just a few minutes away. And now I had to figure out how to drive home, knowing she wasn't anywhere anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark for hours, thinking, feeling everything and nothing at the same time. The kind of grief that doesn't announce itself loudly, it just sits on your chest. And then, around 3 in the morning, something shifted. I felt it before I could explain it. A warmth, not the room, not a blanket. It started somewhere deep and spread outward, like someone had wrapped their arms around me from the inside. The most peaceful feeling I have ever felt in my entire life, and I fell asleep. That's when the dream started. In the dream, I called her husband. I told him Maya had written me a letter. He got quiet for a second, then said it was funny I mentioned that because she had left him a voicemail. And then he asked me to read the letter out loud, so I did. In the letter she thanked us for loving her, for showing up every time without being asked. She asked us to watch over her son. She told us she wasn't in pain anymore, and she told us we were going to be okay. I woke up to my mom standing in my doorway. She looked different, a little confused, honestly. She asked me if I had a pen and paper. I handed her a piece of notebook paper from my nightstand without even thinking about it. She sat down, started writing, and didn't stop until she was done. Then she handed it to me. She said she didn't know why she was giving it to me. Something just told her to write it. Something told her to bring it to me right now. I read it. It was word for word, the exact same letter from my dream. Every line, every thank you, every promise about her son. It was all there, written in my mom's handwriting, but it was Maya's words. I know her words. I know how she talked. It was her. And then I got to the signature. Maya's mom remarried when she was young. She grew up using her mom's last name, and that's what everyone knew her by. That's what I had always known her by. But her biological father had a different last name, and almost no one outside of her closest family even knew it existed. The letter was signed with her father's last name. My mom had no idea. She didn't know that name. She had never heard it. She just wrote it, like something guided her hand and made sure I would recognize it, made sure I would know. I called her husband that morning, read him everything. His voice broke. He said those were her words, exactly her words. Maya came back. She made a promise to me when we were two young women scared of the unknown, and she kept it. She found a way through, and she made sure I knew. Some people say the dead don't speak to us. I used to believe that too. Then one morning in February, everything I thought I knew about life and death and the space between them changed forever. My name is Marcus, and what I'm about to tell you, I've never said out loud to most people. Not because I'm ashamed, but because I still don't fully understand it myself. It started on February 26th, 2013. I was living in Austin, Texas. My older brother Danny was living up in Pennsylvania, about 1,700 miles away. We didn't talk every single day, but he was my brother, my blood, the kind of person whose laugh you can hear in your head even when you haven't spoken in a week. That morning, my phone rang at 5 a.m. There are phone calls that change your life, and then there are the ones that end a part of it entirely. This was one of those. My dad's voice was on the other end, quiet, steady in that terrible way that people get when they've already cried themselves empty. He told me Danny had been driving home late the night before. He had fallen asleep behind the wheel. The car hit a tree. He didn't make it. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, and I didn't say anything for a long time. My dad was still talking, but I couldn't hear the words anymore. All I could hear was this ringing, this hollow, deep ringing, like the world had just gone quiet all at once. Danny was gone. I spent the next several hours in a fog. I cried until I couldn't anymore. I called my wife. I called a couple of friends. I sat on the kitchen floor for a while, just staring at nothing. That kind of grief isn't dramatic. It doesn't look like the movies. It's quiet, heavy, like something invisible is pressing down on your chest and you just can't get up. By around 10 in the morning, I had nothing left. I was exhausted in a way I'd never felt before. Not just tired, emptied out. I went back to bed, not because I wanted to sleep, but because I had nowhere else to go. I closed my eyes, and somehow, eventually, I drifted off, and that is when it happened. I was standing in my own living room, not some strange place, not a forest or a field, or one of those dreamscapes that don't make sense. My living room, in Austin, the same worn rug by the door, same lamp with a slight lean to it, same shelf of books against the wall, everything exactly as it always was. And then there was a knock at the door. In a dream, you don't question things the way you would if you were awake. You just move. I walked to the door. I opened it, and Danny was standing there. I want to be careful about how I describe this, because I don't want to get it wrong. This wasn't like how people sometimes say they saw someone in a dream. Hazy, shifting, not quite right. He was there, solid, present. His eyes were the same. His posture was the same. The way he stood with one shoulder slightly lower than the other. The way he always had since he broke his collarbone playing football in high school. It was him. He smiled at me. Not a sad smile, not a haunted one, just Danny's smile. He said, "I'm okay." And then after a breath, "Don't worry about me. I'm going to be okay." I asked him if he could come in, if he could stay for a while, and I remember the words clearly, even now, years later. He shook his head, slow and gentle, and he said, "No, I gotta go." He stepped forward, and he hugged me, and I felt it, the weight of it, the warmth. I told him I loved him. He said he knew, and then he left. I woke up with tears on my face, but for the first time that whole terrible morning, I didn't feel completely alone. I lay there for a while, trying to hold on to every detail of what I'd just seen. The way he looked, the way he sounded, it had felt so real, not like a dream at all, more like a memory I hadn't made yet. And then my wife came in the room. She had her phone in her hand. She'd been helping me coordinate with family, reaching out to relatives, handling the calls I couldn't make. She sat on the edge of the bed and she pulled up some photos. Danny's friends had been with him the night before he got in the car, before everything. They'd taken pictures, just a regular night, hanging out, the kind of thing you don't think twice about, but they'd posted them that morning. She turned the phone toward me, and my entire body went cold. In the photos, Danny was wearing a gray hoodie, dark jeans, white sneakers with a small logo on the side, his hair pushed back a little off his forehead, the way it got when he hadn't cut it in a few weeks. That was the exact outfit he was wearing when he came to my door. I had not seen those photos before the dream. I had no way of knowing what he was wearing that night. My dad's call came at 5 in the morning. There were no details, no images, no description. I knew nothing except that Danny was gone. And yet there he was, in my dream, in those exact clothes, like he had come straight from that night and walked across 1,700 miles just to knock on my door one more time. I've thought about this moment more times than I can count. There are people who will say it was coincidence, that grief does strange things to the mind, that maybe I'd seen something somewhere without realizing it, some random image that lodged itself in my subconscious. I understand that. I don't blame anyone for thinking it. I might have thought the same thing before this happened to me. But here is what I know. I woke up at 5 a.m. to a phone call that gutted me. I spent hours crying and barely functioning. I went back to sleep, and I had a dream so vivid, so grounded, so real, that it didn't feel like a dream at all. And in that dream, my brother stood at my door in the exact outfit he had been wearing when he left this world. And he told me he was okay. What are the odds? I ask myself that question, and I still don't have an answer that satisfies me. Maybe there isn't one. Maybe that's the whole point. There's something that grief does to you that most people don't talk about. It doesn't just hurt, it isolates. You start to feel like the world is carrying on without you, like people around you have no idea what just happened, like you're speaking a language no one else knows. Danny and I were close in that quiet way brothers sometimes get, not always talking, but always there. And suddenly, there was this silence where he used to be. That dream broke the silence. Whether you believe it was Danny, whether you believe it was something my mind constructed to help me survive, whether you believe in any of it at all, that dream gave me something I didn't know I needed. It gave me a goodbye. Because that's the thing about losing someone suddenly. There's no warning. There's no final conversation where you say everything you meant to say. There's no last hug you know is the last one. There's just a phone call at 5 in the morning, and then nothing. A door that closes without warning, and you're left standing on the wrong side of it, hands raised to knock, wondering if anyone is still listening. He came back, just once, just long enough, and he said everything he needed to say. Years have passed since that morning. I've built a life. I've had moments of joy, and moments where the grief comes back sudden and sharp like it always does. But there's always been this quiet thing underneath it all. This certainty I can't fully explain, that wherever Danny is, he's all right. I still think about that knock at the door sometimes. In the early hours when the house is dark and quiet, when the rest of the world is asleep, and the silence gets big enough to hear your own thoughts clearly. And I think, what if the people we love don't entirely leave? What if there are doors between whatever this is and whatever comes next, and sometimes, just sometimes, someone on the other side finds a way to reach through?